Hey Luis, okay, I've been checking your stuff, and this is the deal. Your high poly is fine. There's issues with it, but it's because you just took a few bad decisions, I guess. One of the things I'm not getting is that it's just not showing all the wireframe that it should show. Like if you had a turbo smooth or a sub D modifier on the stack, but it's not there, so it's kind of weird. But anyway, that's not relevant. The thing is that if you actually turn it into a editable poly, you'll get that because that will just try to see all the faces that you have and stuff. And since you don't have connection points there, it just creates all these issues here. So let's not do that, and let's just keep working with editable meshes. But I do advise you to work with editable polys all the time. One poor decision you made here is that this thing is really like paper thin, and it gives a very crazy angle here to be baked. It's just impossible for you to get a good result in here, and you will see why later. But the issue you're having with the faceting is because your low poly actually adds faces. So it's normal that if there's this line here dividing the smoothing group from this part to the other one, like from this here to it's number one and here is number three, then generates that line that you see there, which it's going to bake onto your normal map, of course. Okay, so if you don't want it, all you have to do is just go to polygon mode, Control A to select all, clear all, and then select one. Okay, it's going to give you this weird shadow here in Max, but that's because these parts are smoothing with the rest here, and this is just bending too aggressively. It doesn't matter though, because if your high poly is properly done, this will all be corrected and it will be baked correctly. So I went ahead and exported just the top. I didn't bother with the rest. Another thing while we're here is that your UVs are kind of not great. First of all, you're having like a lot of maps for this. So it's like one map, two maps, three maps, four maps, five maps. Like that's five different materials for one single object, and that's not something a game engine would like, okay, especially for something like this. So unless this is like the main object of the game and it's like it's going to be in front of the player all the time and crazy detail on it, you don't want to do that. You want to put everything on the same UV map, okay, and just use a 2K texture or whatever, and call it a day. If you take a look at this, sorry, I'm new to Max 2018, just installed it. I used to work with another one. If you look at that and take a look at your UVs, you'll see that we can easily say that there is more than 50% of the space is just being blown away, wasted. Okay, it would be much wiser, first of all, to connect all of them and have them all on the same UV, so all the parts there. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to keep going with this, you just try and accommodate them in a way that you can gain space here. Okay, so try and just do whatever the puzzle you need to do. I'm not going to mess with it, but you understand what I'm saying. So just no space, less space possible. We can see this is not optimized yet, so fix that. So, but onto your issue. Okay, this really these holes here are not a great thing for baking either. Okay, these parts here are not great for baking either because the rays are just going to shoot through. Now you have different meshes, so you're going to bake them separately and it makes no difference. But if this was to be just the one object like I'm suggesting, you might want to reconsider these parts here of actually touching there or just closing it up so that the rays don't shoot through. And like these parts here, well, nobody's going to see that, I guess. So yeah, I went ahead and exported just the top part, and I put it to Marmoset Toolbag, which is pretty much a real-time engine, like a game engine would be, in terms of what you're seeing. And this is your high poly mesh. Okay, so it looks perfectly fine. There's no faceting here, and so there's nothing wrong with your high poly mesh apart from this being extra thin paper. Okay, it's even giving me like a few shadows errors there just because it's so thin, and you might get issues here as well. So this is the high poly, which we're looking at here, just going to hide that, and I'm going to show you the low poly. This is the fixed one, the one with the smoothing groups. This is the one you had, okay? So it looks like this. This is obviously going to bake onto your mesh, okay? So instead of looking like that smooth, which is this, it's just going to have those, okay? Now I went ahead and exported it with the smoothing groups. They're the same for all. All this shading is because of the lights, don't worry. I went ahead and baked the map. So once the map is baked, you can see that now on these parts, it's no longer faceted. It's actually very well baked. I don't mind the lighting here, but I just didn't spend time with it. But you can see that it's perfectly baked. The issue here is that on the same part that I told you, first of all, your meshes are not on the same exact position. Okay, if we take a look at the high poly, we can see, and let me just give a color to this guy here, like a red. We can see that there is slight differences on the positioning of these guys in curvature. Okay, first of all, the high poly is not as round as it should be. Like, there's no reason for a high poly to have faceting like this. Okay, this should be smooth. Okay, that's the first. It is kind of smooth here, but you need more smoothness in here. So just increase the subdivisions in order for this thing to just be smooth. And then they actually need to be on the same position. I don't know how you retop this, but you can see there's differences of height of where they are positioned, and this is going to originate these artifacts that you're looking at here. Just bring the color back again. So wherever your topology is fine, it's baking perfectly, as you can see. Wherever your work is messed up, it's going to just show these errors. All right, so be careful with this, and I hope this helps. Another thing I can tell you is that I don't know how you retop this, or maybe you just use the high poly to go low and do the low poly, which most people do when they're starting. But I highly recommend you search for a program called TopoGun. It's not expensive. It's $100, but well, it's expensive. But I mean, I'm sure you can get a torrent to try it out before you buy it. If you're not willing to buy it to try it. But this is your high poly. Okay, it puts your high poly here. Don't worry about the shading. This is not a lighting program. But what you can do with this is that you can actually just, with this single button, you can just start drawing your topology here, right on top of the thing, okay, and it will never go off your. You see, you can draw your low poly, and I'm being sloppy about it. You can be more precise, but you can draw your low poly right on top of your reference high poly, and this will generate obviously a much better bake. Okay, once we just bridge these guys, you will see that the polygons start to appear. You can use symmetries and stuff so that you can, as you're doing this, it's doing all over the place, just like ZBrush does. It's the retopologizing tool that, like, for me, like no other in terms of its simplicity. Some say it brings nothing to the table, but to me, I just use it every day. At the end of the day, what you get is this. So you start to get the low poly mesh, and you will get it exactly on the same place as your high poly mesh, which is not the case. So in a resume manner, I would say things to do to work on this is, first of all, tackle your high poly. Okay, it needs to be a bit more smooth. It needs to be a bit more smooth, and I don't understand really how you did this. This was probably sub-D, and then somehow you collapsed the things, but it didn't generate the edges that go and encircle this. So you just have a lot of loose vertices, basically, and it, I don't know, it just smells trouble to me. Okay, so just try and work with editable polys, and make sure that when you turbo smooth stuff, and if you want to stack it and collapse it, just collapse it, but make sure that you don't get curves like this, right? This is not an edge. Between 2 points, there must be a straight line. There's no curved lines in 3D. If there's a curved line, it's because there's something wrong. Okay, that's immediately because there's n-gons. Your polygons should be only quads. 4-sided polygons or triangles, never like million-sided polygons with vertices in between. So this is something I would use, I guess. But As you can see, you can bake out of it. The only issue you're going to have is that this is so thin that it's just creating issues all over. And especially if your low poly then is not on the same position exactly as your high poly, like we can actually see here as well. You know, it's just gonna create trouble around that area, especially when it's so thin. So that's the thing. You should try and fix the low poly, the high poly in this part, especially. Just make it thicker. Here it's fine, but you're gonna have to give a vertex here, a vertex there, which is fine. I think this one should hold. And all this part here, this 1, 2, 3 guys, you can make all these. Let me just remove the high poly from here. All these 3, you can just make it into one single object. Put the UVs together, and when you retop this, you just retop this together. Okay, you just bake this together because the area of the white, the yellow thing that you're not going to see is not going to be necessary. So you just use this as the thing. But although you are wasting resources here. Okay. So yeah, that's it. Apart from that, sorry about this guy, he's a friend of mine, actually a boss. He's working on a game with me. So yeah, work on that, dude, and try to fix your UVs to be together. I think you're always gonna have issues as long as you have this type of thin paper thin thing going. So give it a bit of thickness, because this thing wouldn't be as thin as it is, I'm sure. And from there, I mean, your modeling is great. I mean, your topology is fine. We have issues here. I wouldn't do this. It's like 1 point for like a law. So just try, maybe sometimes connect this one to that one, this one to that one, this one, close it off here, and try to make different types of quads instead of just tries like this, because it looks like you're trying to really insanely optimize it, but at the end of the day, you have a lot of polygons behind these areas which nobody's going to see, and they're not needed, so it doesn't make sense to be so insanely optimized. I would use a program like this, or even QuadDraw in Maya, or even here in Studio Max. I never used it, but I know there's a tool that you can actually draw over the same way I was doing it in Topogun. So I would put these 3 guys together, 1 UV, and just retop them, and basically have 2 pieces: the top piece and the bottom piece. This way you will have 2 maps, which is a lot for this, but it's gonna help you bake. And should get you to where you want to be. If you have any questions, just let me know. Have a good one.